She didn't hear the guttural growl, but she felt the deep tremor of the tundra beneath the feet of the 10 white giants. The ice ahead, already fragile, groaned like an imprisoned spirit, and the silent cry of 800 lives echoed in the soul of the deaf elder. With the village on the brink of starvation and death imminent, Anya knew that the fate of her people rested in her hands. And what she would do next would defy all logic of survival. Anya closed her eyes for an instant, and in the darkness of her mind, the image of Borislav, her late husband, appeared as sharp as a reflection on pure ice. He was a legendary reindeer hunter, and his hands, calloused by the cold and the wilderness, had taught her the silent language of the tundra. His lessons weren't just about tracking or hunting, but about feeling the earth, reading the wind, understanding the pulse of life even in the deepest silence. Now, more than ever, she needed that ancestral wisdom. She opened her eyes, and determination hardened the fine lines around them. There was no time for hesitation. The young men of the village, led by Mikhail, her eldest grandson, watched her from afar, their faces marked by exhaustion and fear. They had tried to scare the bears away with shouts and torches, but the white giants, hungry and accustomed to danger, barely moved, only growling louder, a sound Anya didn't hear but felt as a menacing vibration in her bones. Impotence hung over them like the icy mist. Mikhail, in his early 20s, felt the weight of responsibility, but his eyes, fixed on his grandmother, revealed more perplexity than hope. How could a deaf, elderly widow do what the younger, stronger men could not? Despair tightened everyone's chests. Anya didn't look at them. Her focus was on the vastness before her, on the herd cornered by the treacherous fissure, and on the bears slowly approaching, their massive silhouettes moving with lethal grace over the ice. She knew that the bears, with their keen instincts, already smelled fear and vulnerable flesh. The icy air cut her skin, but Anya felt a strange warmth, an energy that came from within, from the memory of her people and the promise she had made to Borislav to protect her family, her village. With slow but firm steps, Anya began to move, not towards the bears, nor directly to the herd, but to a higher rocky area known as Winter's Jaw, a natural formation Borislav used to use to guide reindeer during his hunts. It was a dangerous place, with ravines hidden by snow and narrow passages, but with strategic points. Mikhail's eyes widened. He gestured to the others, not understanding what Anya intended. "Grandmother, no!" he tried to shout, but the words were lost in the icy wind, and Anya, of course, didn't hear them. Her heart, however, heard the call of duty. She continued, her body wrapped in furs, almost swallowed by the immensity of the landscape. Each step was a silent prayer, a conversation with the spirits of the earth and Borislav. She needed to lure the bears away from the herd, to a place where the advantage wasn't theirs, where the uneven terrain would be her ally. And at the same time, she needed to make the terrified reindeer trust her enough to cross the unstable ice. It was a deadly dance with nature, where the melody was silence and the rhythm, the beat of her heart. The bears, in turn, noticed the movement, their small dark eyes fixed on the solitary figure. An unexpected but intriguing prey. Hunger was a powerful motivator, and curiosity an even greater lure. Anya knew this, sensing their predatory intent. She felt their attention, the weight of their hungry gazes, and used it to her advantage, as a decoy. The entire village held its breath, watching the elder who defied the fury of the Arctic, a legend in the making. Anya didn't feel the biting cold that penetrated the multiple layers of fur, nor the howling wind that tried to knock her down with every step. Her mind was in an ancient time, where Borislav taught her to read the marks in the snow, to feel the change in the air. Winter's Jaw was a labyrinth of rocks and snow for Anya, a map etched in her soul. With her gloved hands, she felt the ice, seeking support. Her elderly muscles protested, but her will was unbreakable. Every movement had to be precise, every choice vital. The bears, as predicted, began to follow. The largest of them, an imposing male with a scar over his left eye, was the first to move, his curiosity overcoming caution. Anya felt the heavy vibration of his steps on the ice, a slow, methodical hunting rhythm. The other 9 followed him, forming a silent and menacing procession. They didn't see a fragile elder, but a distraction, an opportunity that drew them away from the herd, promising an easy reward. Hunger was a cruel master, and Anya counted on it. Below, Mikhail watched, his heart pounding. His eyes followed the diminutive figure of his grandmother, seemingly defying age. "She's crazy," a young hunter murmured, but Mikhail didn't answer. He saw the same cold courage that Borislav displayed. Mikhail's hands clenched into fists, not from anger, but from deep anguish. He wanted to pull her back, but he knew Anya wouldn't hear him, and that she was following a path only she understood. Hope mingled with dread. Anya reached a small plateau, Borislav's observation point. From there, she saw the herd, huddled and terrified, with the bears moving away, drawn by her. Momentary relief. She took out a leather pouch, revealing dried herbs and reindeer fat, mixed with a powder Borislav called the scent of deception. With careful movements, she spread the mixture at strategic points on the rocks, creating a strong, inviting scent trail, a false feast for the predators. The bears sniffed the bait. The lead male stopped, sniffing the icy air, his head moving. The scent was irresistible, a promise of fresh meat that diverted them from the herd. Anya watched, her face impassive, but inside a spark of triumph ignited. She was playing a dangerous game, using the predator's nature. The scent trail led to a narrow passage, a ravine hidden by snow, a natural trap Borislav had shown her, a dead end for large creatures. Anya knew that time was crucial. While the bears lingered on the bait, she needed to move to the next point of her strategy, the place from which she would guide the reindeer. She cast a last glance at the herd, feeling the urgency of their lives. The ice beneath them was still a threat, but with the bears distracted, there was a window of opportunity. She turned, her steps firm, descending a side path that the bears, caught in their scent trail, wouldn't notice. The entire village watched every silent movement of their elder. Everyone's fate hung by an invisible thread. Anya descended the side trail, her steps calculated not to raise too much snow and not to alert the bears, who were now delving deeper into winter's jaw. She felt the vibration of the ice beneath her feet, a constant reminder of the fragility of the situation, but her mind was focused. The scent of the bait, carried by the wind, was a perfumed veil that for now kept the predators occupied. With every meter, the image of Borislav seemed to walk beside her, his silent voice echoing advice about patience and cunning. She needed to be the bridge between despair and salvation. When she reached the edge of the fissure, closer to the herd, the 800 reindeer were huddled, trembling. Their large, dark eyes reflected terror, and the warm vapor from their nostrils mingled with the icy air. Anya didn't hear their bleats of fear, but she felt the energy of their panic, a wave that hit her full on. They were exhausted, hungry, and distrustful. How could she convince them to move onto the unstable ice, to freedom, when instinct told them to stay still? Mikhail and the other hunters from above watched Anya with a mixture of admiration and disbelief. They saw her disappear and reappear, a small, solitary figure before the mass of reindeer. The ice beneath the herd cracked occasionally, a sound that echoed in the valley, but which Anya didn't perceive. Mikhail felt a shiver down his spine. His grandmother was about to do the impossible. Hope, previously a thin thread, began to strengthen in his chest, mixed with an almost unbearable anxiety. Anya took a small, polished reindeer antler from her fur pouch, a gift from Borislav. It wasn't meant to make a sound, but to be felt. With her gloved hands, she held it firmly and began to tap gently on the ice in front of her, creating a rhythmic sequence of vibrations. It was an ancient technique taught by her husband to communicate with animals without sound. The reindeer, curious and frightened, raised their heads, feeling the rhythmic pattern spreading across the ice. The lead male bear, the 1,500-kilogram one with the scar, stopped abruptly in the middle of the ravine. The scent of the bait was strong, but something didn't feel right. He sniffed the air again, his head turning, and a low growl escaped his throat. The other bears, slower, continued to follow the trail, but the leader's hesitation was a bad omen. They were reaching the point where the scent of deception intensified, but the natural trap narrowed, making passage more difficult for their gigantic bodies. Anya continued her rhythm, slowly approaching the herd. She extended her hand, palm open, a gesture of trust and invitation. The closest reindeer recoiled slightly, but the constant vibration and the elder's calm presence began to take effect. She knew she needed one of them, just one, to take the first step. The fate of 800 lives in the entire village depended on that act of faith, of an animal trusting the silent wisdom of a woman. Anya continued the gentle rhythm with the antler, the vibrations traveling across the ice. A silent, secure melody. Her eyes, fixed on the herd, conveyed a calm that defied the chaos. She felt the animal's hesitation, the battle between fear and promise. A young reindeer trembled, its eyes fixed on her, seeking an answer. It was a glimmer of hope. Up in the ravine, the lead bear let out a deep growl, which Anya felt as a chill in the earth. He turned, ignoring the scent trail, and sniffed the air, catching an anomaly. The other bears, slow and focused on the bait, continued to advance into the narrowing passage. The trap was closing, but the cunning leader perceived the deception. Mikhail, from above, saw the lead bear's movement, and his heart pounded. "He noticed!" he exclaimed, his voice hoarse. The hunters exchanged glances, panic returning. If the leader retreated, the strategy would collapse. Anya, oblivious to the shouts, kept her focus on the herd, hand outstretched, the antler tapping rhythmically. She trusted Borislav, his wisdom and intuition. Anya felt the growing tension. She knew the lead bear was intelligent, but hunger was a powerful force. Borislav's bait, a promise of satiety, blinded them. She needed to act fast. She changed the rhythm of the taps, making them faster and more insistent, an urgent invitation to freedom. An older female reindeer, with a scar on her flank, took a hesitant step, her eyes fixed on Anya. She was the matriarch, and her decision would influence the others. Anya felt a deep connection, a silent understanding. The elder smiled and nodded, encouraging her. The reindeer hesitated, the ice cracking softly, and then, with a sigh felt in the air's vibration, took the first firm step onto the unstable ice. A murmur of astonishment and hope ran through the hunters. "She did it," Mikhail whispered, his eyes moist. The first reindeer had moved. Like a wave, the others began to follow, one by one, cautiously, but with new determination. Fear was still there, but trust was stronger. The ice groaned under the weight, but held. Anya felt the mass of lives moving, a current of hope flowing over the fragile surface. The lead bear, frustrated, let out a roar of rage that made the snow tremble. He realized that the main prey was escaping. He turned to leave the ravine, but the other bears, cornered and confused by the bait, blocked his way. The passage was too narrow to maneuver. Borislav's trap worked, disorienting and delaying them. Anya, feeling the predator's fury, knew that time was running out. She needed to guide the herd to safety. Her heart pounded with sacred urgency. She continued to tap the antler, now with more force, an unwavering call. The reindeer, feeling the rhythm and seeing the matriarch ahead, quickened their pace, their hooves tapping on the ice with a hurried cadence. The sound, inaudible to Anya, was a symphony of life for the hunters. a sound of salvation. The fissure, once impassable, now became a path to freedom. Guided by the silent wisdom of an elder, the fate of the village hanging by a thread began to unfold. She continued to tap the antler, now with more force, an unwavering call. The reindeer, feeling the rhythm and seeing the matriarch ahead, quickened their pace, their hooves tapping on the ice with a hurried cadence. The sound, inaudible to Anya, was a symphony of life for the hunters, a sound of salvation. The fissure, once impassable, now became a path to freedom, guided by the silent wisdom of an elder. The fate of the village, hanging by a thread, began to unfold. The ice, under the combined weight of 800 moving reindeer, groaned and cracked with greater intensity. Small cracks formed and spread like spiderwebs, but did not deepen enough to give way. Anya felt every vibration in her feet, a dangerous dance between the force of life and the fragility of nature. She knew that the key was to maintain the rhythm, the fluidity of movement, to distribute the weight and prevent the ice from concentrating at a single point. Her eyes swept over the herd, looking for signs of panic that could break the chain. Up above, Mikhail and the hunters watched with their hearts in their throats. With each crack of the ice, a shiver ran down their spines, but seeing the reindeer advance, following Anya's small figure, brought a wave of almost euphoric hope. The men embraced, some with tears in their eyes, but Mikhail's gaze was fixed on the ravine. The lead bear, the 1,500-kilogram giant with the scar, had finally broken free from the others, who were still agitated and confused by the bait and the narrow passage. Anya felt the change in the air's vibration, a subtle alteration in pressure that indicated the predator's movement. The bear's deep growl, though inaudible, resonated in her bones like a distant drum. She knew he was coming, fast, driven by fury and hunger. There was no time to lose. With an effort that seemed to wring the last drop of energy from her tired body, she intensified the antler taps, an urgent command for the reindeer to accelerate. The herd responded, their hooves tapping faster, an avalanche of flesh and bone over the ice. The matriarch at the front seemed to understand the urgency, her large dark eyes fixed on the distant bank. The ice beneath them curved dangerously at one point, and a young reindeer slipped, its hind legs almost giving way. Anya, without hesitation, reached out, touching the animal's flank, a silent connection that helped it regain its balance. A sigh of relief ran through the hunters. Mikhail saw the lead bear emerge from the ravine, its massive silhouette standing out against the snow. He was running, with surprising speed for his size, straight towards the herd. "Grandmother, he's coming!" Mikhail shouted, his voice echoing desperately. But Anya, of course, didn't hear him. She felt the approach, the growing vibration of the predator, and knew she was in a race against time. The safe bank seemed so close, yet still so far. Anya knew she needed one last effort. She couldn't risk the herd dispersing or panicking. With a determined movement, she threw the reindeer antler onto the ice in front of her, creating a continuous and strong vibration. Then she turned, not to flee, but to face the bear, extending her arms, a fragile but unwavering barrier between the predator and the reindeer. The lead bear stopped abruptly a few meters from her, sniffing the air, confused by the small figure's audacity. He let out a menacing growl, which Anya felt as a violent tremor in her chest. His small, dark eyes fixed on hers. It was a duel of wills, a silent confrontation between ancestral wisdom and the fury of nature. The entire village watched, holding its breath, as everyone's fate was decided in that moment of courage. The reindeer, propelled by the rhythm of the antler and Anya's silent barrier, reached the safe bank one by one, climbing onto the firmer snow. Most were already on the other side, but Anya was still on the ice, between the bear and the last animals. Exhaustion weighed on her, but the determination in her eyes was stronger than any pain. The bear took a step forward, and Anya felt the ground tremble. The bear let out another guttural roar, an inaudible thunder that Anya felt vibrating through the very marrow of her bones. Its massive head, adorned with the battle scar over its left eye, lowered slightly, a clear sign of an imminent charge. Anya held her position, her small figure a testament to courage, her arms still outstretched, a symbolic barrier against primordial fury. She saw no fear in her eyes, only an iron determination, the same that Borislav had taught her to have in the face of danger. Exhaustion was a heavy cloak, but the life of her village was a stronger burden propelling her. Mikhail from above let out a muffled cry of dread. He saw the bear prepare, its muscles tense beneath its white fur. The last reindeer, propelled by the constant vibration of Anya's antler and by panic, finally reached the safe bank, their hooves scraping on the firm snow. But Anya remained on the unstable ice, a few meters from the giant predator. Mikhail's heart pounded erratically, a rhythm of despair and admiration. He wanted to run, to help, but he knew it would be useless, a meaningless sacrifice. Anya felt the bear's weight shift. He wouldn't attack head-on, not yet. Cunning was part of his nature. The predator began to circle, heavy, calculated steps, trying to flank the elder, seeking an opening. Anya slowly turned, keeping him always in front of her, her eyes fixed on his, a silent dance of life and death. She felt every tremor of the ice beneath her feet, every tiny crack that formed. The ice was at its limit, and she knew it. It was then that the turning point happened. It wasn't a direct attack, but a consequence of the tension and accumulated weight. The bear, completing a semicircle, stepped on an area of ice that, although it seemed solid, had been subtly weakened by the passage of the reindeer and the continuous vibration of Anya's antler. With a deafening crack, which Anya felt as an electric shock throughout her body, a vast section of the ice gave way, not directly under the bear, but just in front of it and to the side, creating a new and treacherous fissure, wider and deeper than the first. The lead bear instinctively recoiled, a growl of surprise and frustration escaping its throat. The new chasm now between him and Anya was impassable, an abyss of icy water and ice shards. He was isolated, separated from his main prey and the herd that was now safe. The other 9 bears, who had finally broken free from winter's jaw and were running to the spot, stopped abruptly at the sight of the new and dangerous fissure, their survival instincts overcoming hunger for an instant. Anya, staggering from the impact of the crack, felt a sudden but brief relief. Borislav's plan, his deep wisdom about the fragility of the ice, had worked in an unexpected but decisive way. She hadn't planned the fissure in that exact spot, but she knew the ice was about to give way at some point. Now, with the lead bear isolated and the other predators stopped by the new barrier, it was her chance to escape. She turned, her eyes sweeping the safe bank where the reindeer were gathered, and then to Mikhail, who watched her with his soul in his eyes. A faint but victorious smile appeared on her cold, cracked lips. It was a smile of sacrifice fulfilled, of duty honored. With slow and careful steps, Anya began to move away from the bear towards safety, the ice cracking menacingly with each movement. The white giant, frustrated, let out another roar, but could not cross the new chasm. He was trapped, and Anya finally was free to join her people. The village had been saved, and the deaf elder once again had proven that true strength lies in the resilience of the human spirit. Anya felt the weight of exhaustion, the adrenaline subsiding, her steps dragged, every muscle protesting, the ice cracked, a reminder of fragility. She didn't hear, but she felt the vibrations in her bones, an echo of the battle. Her eyes sought the safe bank, a promise of warmth and familiar faces. The victorious smile was faint, but it carried the strength of 1,000 winters. Her part was done. Up above, Mikhail ran down the slope, his heart overflowing with relief and reverence. The hunters followed him, their eyes fixed on Anya. They saw her staggering, small, yet the achiever of an incomprehensible feat. The reindeer, safe on the bank, watched curiously. A murmur of gratitude and admiration spread among the villagers, who gathered, tears streaming down their weathered faces. The lead bear on the other side of the new fissure growled in frustration, its fury contained. The other 9 bears, confused by the scent trap, approached the new chasm. The abyss and the absence of the herd kept them at bay. They were cunning predators, and Anya's silent lesson had been clear. This was no easy feast. Wild nature yielded to ancestral wisdom. Anya continued to move, one step at a time, the cold penetrating but not her spirit. The image of Borislav, his gentle smile and wise eyes, filled her mind. He would have been proud, understood the depth of her sacrifice, the courage born of love for her people. She felt the connection with him, an invisible bridge that guided her in the darkest moments. When her feet touched the firm snow of the bank, a collective sigh of relief echoed. Mikhail was the first to reach her, his strong arms wrapping her in a tight embrace. He said nothing, just held her, feeling the fragility of her body and the immensity of her spirit. Anya, in his arms, felt the human warmth, the connection that bound her to her family, to her community. She couldn't hear the words, but she felt the love and respect radiating from every touch, every glance. The other hunters and villagers approached, forming a circle of reverence. No one dared to touch her, but their eyes conveyed deep gratitude. The deaf elder, underestimated, had become the personification of resilience, the guardian of their lives. The reindeer, grazing calmly, were living proof of her heroism. Hunger had been temporarily averted, and hope, once frozen, began to blossom in the hearts of Kitach. Anya raised her head, her eyes scanning the faces of her people. She saw admiration, relief, and above all, unity. In that moment she knew that the true treasure of the village was not the reindeer, but the collective strength of their spirit, the ability to overcome, to sacrifice, to connect. Borislav's wisdom was not just about hunting and traps, but about the interconnectedness of all lives, about the delicate dance between man and nature, and about the courage of a woman who, without sound, moved mountains of ice and despair. Even as the merciless winter persisted and life in Yakutia continued to be a daily challenge, Anya's victory would resonate for generations. It was a vivid reminder that Kitach's true wealth lay not in its resources, but in the unbreakable soul of its people, a beacon of hope against the Arctic darkness. Anya, wrapped in Mikhail's strong arms, felt her body tremble, no longer from fear, but from deep exhaustion. Her grandson's warmth was a balm against the cold. She closed her eyes, absorbing the stillness. Mikhail's breath in her hair, his gentle embrace, spoke of love and relief. She didn't hear the sobs, but she felt the wave of emotion, the gratitude hanging in the air. Mikhail pulled her back, his tear-filled eyes fixed on his grandmother's wise face. He touched her wrinkles, marks of winters and challenges. "Grandmother," he whispered, his voice choked, "you saved us." Anya didn't hear, but she read his lips, the intensity in his gaze, and a tender smile curved her own. She touched Mikhail's face, a gesture of connection, of love that spanned generations. Hunters and villagers formed a respectful semicircle. Their faces, once desperate, now displayed admiration, reverence, and relief. Older women nodded, some wiping away tears. The men's eyes were fixed on Anya, seeing in her the embodiment of Kitach's indomitable spirit. Anya, exhausted, felt the collective energy, the rebirth of hope. She turned to the reindeer, grazing on the firm snow, safe from the fissure and predators. The herd, once a trembling mass of panic, now represented life, food, continuity. The 800 animals were living proof of the community's prevalence. On the other side of the new fissure, the lead bear let out sporadic growls, fury and frustration evident. The 9 bears kept their distance from the dangerous edge of the ice. They were cunning predators, and Anya's silent lesson had been clear. Prey would not be easy. Wild nature, for a moment, had been overcome by cunning and ancestral wisdom. Anya felt the cold, but the duty fulfilled warmed her. The image of Borislav, his gentle smile and wise eyes, filled her mind. He would have been proud, understood her sacrifice, the courage born of love for her people. She felt the connection with him, an invisible bridge that had guided her in the dark moments. The reindeer antler fallen on the ice was a silent symbol of her journey. Mikhail, noticing his grandmother's exhaustion, helped her sit on a rock. He took off his fur coat and wrapped it around her shoulders. "We'll take you home, grandmother," he said. "You need to rest." Anya nodded, her eyes scanning the faces of her people. She saw admiration, relief, and unity. She knew that the village's treasure was not the reindeer, but the collective strength of their spirit, the ability to overcome, sacrifice, connect. Borislav's wisdom was not just about hunting, but about the interconnectedness of lives, the delicate dance between man and nature, and the courage of a woman who, without sound, moved mountains of ice and despair. Winter would persist, life in Yakutia would be a challenge, but Anya's victory would resonate for generations. It was a reminder that Kitach's wealth was not in its resources, but in the unbreakable soul of its people, a beacon of hope against the Arctic darkness. The community, united, planned the next steps, knowing that, despite the struggle, they were not alone. The community, united, planned the next steps, knowing that despite the struggle, they were not alone. The icy air of Yakutia, once heavy with despair, now vibrated with relief. Mikhail, holding Anya, felt his grandmother's fragile body relax. He lifted her carefully, his strong muscles contrasting with her lightness. "Let's go home, grandmother," he repeated, louder, so she would feel the vibration. Anya opened her eyes, nodding slightly, her face marked by fatigue, but with peace. The hunters, led by Borislav, Anya's eldest son, began to organize the herd. The reindeer matriarch guided the animals away from the fissure, towards a protected area of the tundra with snow and moss. Borislav, seeing his mother in Mikhail's arms, felt a lump in his throat. He approached, his blue eyes full of admiration. He touched Anya's shoulder, a gesture of respect and love. She felt the familiar touch, the warmth of her son's hand, and a gentle smile appeared on her lips. The village women who had endured the agony of waiting now descended, bringing warm blankets and herbal tea. They hurried towards the reindeer, checking if any animal was injured. The small village of Kitach, on the brink of annihilation, was reborn under the pale winter sun. Human connection, Anya's altruism, had rekindled the flame of hope in everyone. Mikhail, with Anya in his arms, climbed the slope towards the village. The villagers made way, forming a reverent procession. No one spoke loudly. Their respect for the elder was profound. Anya, nestled against her grandson, felt the rhythm of their steps, the warmth of his body, and the vibrations of the ground. She felt the presence of her people, the gratitude that emanated. In her mind, the image of Borislav, her husband, lingered, proud. She knew he was with her. As they reached the top, the view of the village with its huts and smoke rising from the chimneys seemed more welcoming. The children kept inside, peeked through the doors, their curious eyes full of admiration fixed on Anya. They didn't understand, but they felt the change in the atmosphere. The adults contained joy. Anya was taken to her hut, the oldest one, where a fire crackled in the hearth. Mikhail gently laid her on her fur bed, covering her with blankets. The women brought tea, and Lena, a young woman Anya had helped, held the cup for her, her eyes full of gratitude. Anya drank the tea, feeling the warmth spread. The bitter taste of the herbs was comforting. Outside, life in the village resumed with new purpose. The hunters, with Borislav's help, guided the reindeer to safe pastures, away from the bears who, frustrated and isolated by the new fissure, began to move away. Anya's wisdom, the resilience of her spirit, had not only saved the herd, but taught a lesson to wild nature. The village of Kitach, though still facing the merciless winter, now had a story to tell of overcoming, love, and a deaf elder who, with silent courage, ensured the lives of all. Hope, stronger than the cold, blossomed again. Anya, in her warm hut, felt the fire's heat caress her wrinkled face. Lena's warm tea warmed her body, and the quietness, once a burden, was now a sanctuary. She closed her eyes, deep exhaustion mixed with serene peace. In her mind, images of the fissure, the bears and the reindeer mingled, but the figure of Borislav, her husband, remained sharp. He smiled, a smile she felt in her soul, and she knew he was watching her, proud. The sacrifice, the courage born of love for her people, was her tribute to him, the continuity of his wisdom. Outside, the village buzzed with renewed energy. Mikhail, after ensuring Anya was comfortable, joined his father, Borislav, and the other hunters. The priority was clear: organize the 800 reindeer. Anya's son, Borislav, with his experience and leadership, had already assigned teams to guide the herd to the safest pastures, where moss, though scarce, could be found under the snow. The reindeer, now calmer, followed the herd's matriarch, who seemed to understand the importance of each step. The hunters moved with precision, their gestures firm and coordinated, a ballet of survival on the tundra. They checked each animal, looking for injuries or signs of exhaustion, offering care and attention that went beyond the simple need for food. It was an act of respect for life, a recognition of the value of each creature. The village women, led by the elders, prepared more tea and nutritious broths. The aroma of cooked reindeer meat and herbs spread through the air, a scent of hope. They moved between the huts, sharing extra blankets and words of comfort. Lena, with a sparkle in her eyes, helped distribute the tea, feeling part of something larger. Gratitude for Anya was palpable, expressed in respectful glances and gentle touches. The children, previously frightened, now played in the snow, their laughter echoing, a sound that, though inaudible to Anya, was the melody of life for the village. In Anya's hut, Mikhail returned, sitting silently beside his grandmother. He held her hand, her cold wrinkles against his warm skin. There was no need for words. The connection between them was deep, woven by years of silence and mutual understanding. Anya opened her eyes, looking at her grandson. She saw the admiration in his eyes, the promise of a future she had helped secure. A slight squeeze of her hand was her answer, a silent acknowledgement of the love that united them. Although the immediate threat of the bears had been averted, the reality of the merciless winter remained. Hunger had been temporarily contained, but the struggle for survival in Kitach was a daily battle. The village would need all its strength and unity to face the remaining months of extreme cold. Anya's wisdom had not only saved the reindeer, it had rekindled the flame of resilience in the heart of every villager. They had learned that, even in the face of the impossible, courage, altruism, and human connection could move mountains of ice and despair. The community, united, planned the next steps, not just to survive, but to prosper, honoring the sacrifice and wisdom of their elder. The future of Kitach, though challenging, was now a living testament to the unbreakable strength of the human spirit. The community, united, planned the next steps, not just to survive, but to prosper, honoring the sacrifice and wisdom of their elder. The future of Kitach, though challenging, was now a living testament to the unbreakable strength of the human spirit. In Anya's hut, the quietness was profound, but not empty. She felt the pulse of the village through the ground, a vibration that was more than sound. It was renewed life, the hope she had helped rekindle. Mikhail still held her hand, his eyes fixed on her, and Anya, without hearing, understood the depth of his gratitude. She closed her eyes again, allowing the image of Borislav, her silent guide, to fill her mind. He smiled, and she felt the peace that only duty fulfilled could bring. Outside, night fell, but the darkness did not bring despair. The bonfires crackled stronger, and the voices of the villagers, once whispers of fear, now carried a tone of resolution. Borislav, his face marked by fatigue, but his eyes full of new purpose, supervised the final preparations for the reindeer's safety. He had ensured the herd was in a protected valley, with vigilant guards and lit bonfires to ward off any remaining predators. Beside him, Lena and other women distributed portions of reindeer meat and hot tea, the food not only nourishing bodies but also spirits. The air was impregnated with the smell of smoke and the promise of a tomorrow. Mikhail, after a long moment of silence beside Anya, stood up. He kissed his grandmother's wrinkled forehead, a gesture of love and reverence that Anya felt deeply. As he left the hut, he found his father, Borislav, at the door. The two men looked at each other, a tacit understanding passing between them. "She saved us, father," Mikhail whispered, his voice hoarse with emotion. Borislav nodded, his blue eyes shining in the dim light. "We always knew her strength, son, but today she showed us its true depth." News of Anya's feat had spread beyond the village, reaching neighboring nomadic camps. Messengers on horseback, defying the biting cold, arrived in Kaitach, bringing not only news, but also offerings of gratitude and promises of help. The story of the deaf elder who faced giant bears to save her people became a living legend, a beacon of hope throughout Yakutia. The village, once isolated in its struggle, now felt the strength of solidarity, an invisible web of support that stretched across the tundra. The next morning, a pale, cold sun illuminated Kitach. The villagers gathered in the center of the village, a silent circle of faces marked by time and adversity, but now lit by a new determination. Anya, wrapped in furs, was brought out by Mikhail and Borislav, sitting on an improvised throne of snow and furs. She didn't hear the murmur of reverence that spread, but she felt the warmth of their gazes, the collective energy emanating from each person. Borislav stepped forward, raising a polished reindeer antler, not the one Anya had used, but a symbol of their heritage and the new era beginning. "Today, we honor Anya," he proclaimed, his voice resonating with pride and contained emotion. "She reminded us that true strength lies not in hearing or youth, but in the resilience of the human spirit and the wisdom of ancestors. She taught us to prosper, not just to survive, and to recognize the interconnectedness of all lives in this frozen world." The villagers, one by one, bowed deeply, some with silent tears streaming down their faces. The children with wide eyes watched the elder who had become a hero, a living example of courage. Anya, feeling the vibration of the ground and the intensity of their gazes, raised a wrinkled hand in a gesture of acceptance and love, her expression serene and wise. It was the climax of her journey, the recognition of a sacrifice that had united everyone and forged a new path. The village of Kitach was no longer just a cluster of huts against the cold. It was a community forged in courage, connection, and hope. Winter was still merciless, but they would face it together, with Anya's wisdom as their silent guide, an eternal beacon in the Arctic darkness. Anya, feeling the vibration of the ground and the intensity of their gazes, raised a wrinkled hand in a gesture of acceptance and love, her expression serene and wise. It was the climax of her journey, the recognition of a sacrifice that had united everyone and forged a new path. The village of Kitach was no longer just a cluster of huts against the cold. It was a community forged in courage, connection, and hope. Winter was still merciless, but they would face it together, with Anya's wisdom as their silent guide, an eternal beacon in the Arctic darkness. After the ceremony, Anya was taken back to her hut by Mikhail and Borislav. The warmth of the fire and the welcoming silence enveloped her, and she lay on her fur bed, feeling every muscle in her body protest. The exhaustion was immense, but the peace that filled her was even greater. In her mind, Borislav was by her side, his gentle eyes reflecting the pride she felt. The connection with him was a flame that would never extinguish, a bond that guided and strengthened her. She knew that her sacrifice was not only for the village, but also a tribute to the memory of her beloved. Outside, the village, once plunged into the shadow of despair, now radiated renewed energy. Borislav, with the leadership he inherited from his father, organized the hunters to solidify the reindeer's safety. The herd, now calm and grazing in a protected valley, was the promise of life. Bonfires were lit at strategic points to ward off any bear that might venture again, and watch shifts were established, ensuring the animals were always under protection. The hunters worked with renewed vigor, their movements precise and full of purpose. The village women, led by the elders, transformed the reindeer meat into nutritious broths and dried portions, essential for the harsh months ahead. The aroma of food, once scarce, now permeated the air, a smell of abundance and gratitude. Lena, with a smile on her lips and sparkling eyes, helped distribute hot tea and blankets, feeling the strength of unity. The children, free from fear, played in the snow, their laughter echoing like the melody of hope. Mikhail, after making sure Anya was sleeping soundly, joined his father. They talked in low voices, planning the next steps, the construction of more robust shelters for the reindeer, the gathering of extra firewood, and the organization of smaller hunting expeditions to supplement the village's diet. The crisis had forced Kitach to unite in a way it never had before, revealing the latent strength in each member. News of Anya's feat continued to spread. More messengers from neighboring camps arrived, bringing not only offerings but also the promise of knowledge and resource exchange. The village of Kitach, once isolated, now found itself at the center of a network of solidarity, a testament to the power of a woman who, without sound, had moved mountains of ice and despair. Anya's ancestral wisdom had not only saved the herd, but had rekindled the flame of resilience in the heart of every villager and beyond. The future of Kitach, though challenging, was now a living testament to the unbreakable strength of the human spirit, a beacon of hope against the Arctic darkness. News of Anya's feat continued to spread. More messengers from neighboring camps arrived, bringing not only offerings, but also the promise of knowledge and resource exchange. The village of Kitach, once isolated, now found itself at the center of a network of solidarity, a testament to the power of a woman who, without sound, had moved mountains of ice and despair. Anya's ancestral wisdom had not only saved the herd, but had rekindled the flame of resilience in the heart of every villager and beyond. The future of Kitach, though challenging, was now a living testament to the unbreakable strength of the human spirit, a beacon of hope against the Arctic darkness. In the quietness of her hut, Anya felt the pulse of this new reality. Although she didn't hear the voices praising her name, she perceived the change in the air, the vibration of a community that once on the brink of the abyss now rose with renewed strength. Her eyes, once tired, shone with a deep serenity. The image of Borislav, her beloved husband, was no longer a painful memory, but a comforting presence. A silent smile that confirmed her mission had been accomplished, her wisdom honored. Mikhail, her grandson, sat at her feet, reading an ancient book of YAKUT tales, his voice soft and rhythmic, though inaudible to Anya. He knew his grandmother felt the vibration of the words, the rhythm of the story. The young man, once concerned about his grandmother's fragility, now saw her as a pillar of strength, a living link to the past and a bridge to the future. His hand, firm, rested on hers, a gesture of love and a silent promise that Anya's wisdom would be preserved and transmitted. Outside, Borislav, Anya's son, led the village with a new vision. He not only organized the hunting and protection of the reindeer, but also encouraged the exchange of techniques and knowledge with neighboring nomads. The barriers of isolation fell, replaced by a network of mutual support. The reindeer, now well cared for and protected in robust shelters, were more than food. They were a symbol of unity, perseverance, and Kaitak's ability to adapt and prosper. The village women, with Lena at the forefront, creatively transformed resources, preparing food that would last the winter and weaving warmer clothes from the furs. The communal kitchen buzzed with laughter and conversations, a stark contrast to the heavy silence before. Lena, with a new sparkle in her eyes, told the children the story of the silent elder who saved everyone, ensuring that Anya's legend lived on for future generations. The children, once pale with hunger and fear, now ran and played in the snow, their cheeks rosy and their laughter echoing across the tundra. They represented the promise of a tomorrow, a future where resilience and human connection would be the foundations. Anya, in her hut, felt the joy emanating from them, the inaudible melody of a life flourishing against all odds. Winter was still relentless, and life in Yakutia would continue to be a daily battle. However, the village of Kitach no longer faced the darkness alone. The story of Anya, the deaf elder who, with silent courage and ancestral wisdom, moved mountains of ice and despair, had transformed isolation into solidarity, despair into hope. In her fur bed, Anya closed her eyes. Peace enveloped her. She felt the warmth of the fire, Mikhail's gentle touch, the vibration of the village pulsating with renewed life. Her journey had come to an end, but her legacy was just beginning. Kitach's true wealth was not in the reindeer, but in the unbreakable soul of its people, an eternal beacon of hope and resilience against the Arctic darkness. Guided by the wisdom of a woman who, without sound, taught the world to listen, Anya in her hut felt the echo of this new era. It was not a sound her ears could capture, but a resonance that vibrated through the ground, the air, and in the heart of every person. The village, once shrunk by fear and hunger, now expanded with an energy that seemed to defy winter itself. Her eyes, which had witnessed so many adversities, reflected a serenity that transcended understanding. The image of Borislav, her beloved husband, was no longer just a distant memory. It was a constant presence, a silent smile that enveloped her, confirming that the love and wisdom they shared had blossomed into a lasting legacy. Mikhail, her grandson, continued to sit at her feet, watching her with devotion. He brought drawings of the new structures for the reindeer, hunting plans and proposals for exchange with neighboring camps. Although Anya could not hear, she felt the passion in his gestures, the determination in his eyes, and the weight of the scrolls. He was no longer just the young man who had carried her. He was the future of Kitach, a leader shaped by his grandmother's courage and wisdom. Mikhail's hand, now stronger and more confident, rested on hers, an unbreakable link between generations. Outside, Borislav, Anya's son, led with an expanded vision. The village was not just surviving, it was thriving. The reindeer shelters, now completed, were robust and warm, protecting the herd from the most intense cold. The bonfires, lit at strategic points, were not only to ward off predators, but also to illuminate the path of messengers arriving and departing, strengthening ties with other communities. The exchange of knowledge and resources had transformed Kitach into a center of resilience, a beacon of hope for all of Yakutia. The village women, with Lena at the forefront, innovated in food preservation techniques and clothing making. The communal kitchen was a hub of activity where laughter and stories mingled with the aroma of nutritious broths and baked bread. Lena, with a sparkle in her eyes that Anya felt as warmth, taught the children not only daily tasks, but also the tales of the silent elder, ensuring that Anya's bravery and altruism would be immortalized. The children, now robust and full of life, ran and played in the snow. Their voices, though inaudible to Anya, were the sweetest melody of victory. Winter still stretched, relentless, but the village of Kitach had learned to dance with it, to find beauty and strength in its ferocity. Anya's ancestral wisdom was not just a memory. It was a living guide, a set of principles that shaped every decision, every gesture. Human connection, altruism, and overcoming were no longer just values. They were the essence of life in Kitach. Anya, on her fur bed, felt the quietness that enveloped her, a quietness that was not of absence, but of fullness. She felt the warmth of the fire, Mikhail's firm touch, and the constant vibration of a village that had found its purpose. Her journey, indeed, had come to an end, but the legacy she left, the beacon of hope she had lit, would continue to shine, guiding Kitach through future winters, an eternal testament to the unbreakable strength of the human spirit. The village now was not just a place on the map, but a living story of how the silent courage of a woman could teach the world to listen to the true melody of life.